I was with my father. In the 1950s, I was with my father, Bronco Don Johnson, out in the mustering camp. We lived on damp and thick slabs of corned meat with a drop of tomato sauce. Great tucker, mate. All you needed was a billy of black tea, a saddle pouch, Quartpot, and a bit of sugar to wash it down, mate, in the old Quartpot. Dad and the men were contract mustering cattle for the winters. A bullock had been killed by the squatter, and a bullock hide was pegged out on the ground with a bits of cut wire and banged into the ground, you know, to stretch her out. Just like the kangaroo shooters used to as well. They used to peg their hides out like that using pieces of cut fencing wire knocked into the ground with a stick or a hammer. And they stopped doing that when they started shooting the kangaroos for meat about 10 years later in the 60s. Don got Strawn, Elson and cattle pup Ewan making hobble straps out of the greenhide, doubling the hide over so the hair was folded in out of the way. The thickest and best leather came from the backbone of the hide. So you had to have something strong to hold a horse's fetlock, you know, with a hobble chain. Bronco was whittling hobble pegs out of Gidgee to fix the hobble straps on the horses. Good wood, Gidgee, mate. Fence posts are the very best. So around the horse's fetlock and poke it through a short slot in the hide, and cut a small hole in the hide in the hobble strap to put the peg in. The Aussie hobble peg had a small knob on each end, so it wouldn't come out easy and was a few inches long. Horses were hobbled out overnight to get a feed. One of the mares had a small bell on her to listen for during the night to see if the horses were walking away or just feeding. And you knew when where they were come daylight. If they were trotting away, we could certainly hear the old bell rattling. So we would saddle up and take the hoops out of the horses at daylight. Down with their heads, the horses would pig root now, and the pup and Straw were rodeo riders and just reefed up their horses' heads and spurred if the horse kept playing up. Usually jumped them into a canter and the horse settled down for the day's work. After about 10 minutes riding, you always got off the horse and tightened the girth and the surcingle to avoid girth galling your horse. If your girth strap broke, the surcingle saved you from the ground flop when you hit the bloody ground. If your girth and your surcingle went, well, you were gone too, man. Riding through the timber looking for cattle to turn onto the fence where they would be collected and driven to a bush yard made of round timber. That's what the mustering was about. Post and rail, cob and code with double fencing wire twitched with a pair of pliers probably to hold the rail on the post. Shaped ends on the 12-foot long rails used a axe to fit the rail into the slots cut in the posts, so it looked all very neat. The 10-foot post would be 3 foot in the ground and rammed with a crowbar to make them firm in the ground. The yard was made of Gidgee and would be still there today. I'm talking back in 1950 this was done, mate. Cattle pup was a character and was always saying, "How did I go with him, mate?" after riding a bullock or a horse at the rodeo. He didn't always go with him, mate. Hup pulled an old 45 revolver and was plonking away at a crow. The crow arced and left. One of the men wanted to get a few quid for the loss of a finger in insurance. Gunner Joe put his hand round a yellow jacket gum tree, and after jerking his hands away from the axe twice, Bronco got the finger on the third try, so he got his insurance pounds, eh? At 5 I had a quiet bolted gelding called Star, very hard in the mouth, never mouthed properly. If you take care when mouthing a horse, it will have a sensitive mouth instead of a callous one, and the horse will turn and stop readily if he's got a sensitive mouth. Great gallop Star, you couldn't turn him, but I could generally point him. And Bronco Johnson and I were after horses, and they galloped away. Star was almost up with the leaders, and Bronco was being left behind on his half-broken-in horse. He yelled at me, the 5-year-old, "Pull on the one rein, pull on the one rein." So I galloped in a big circle back to him. That sorted it out, eh? Then when I was 10, Bronco, he fought with his drover workers, and they left him with 1,000 head of cattle on the Bolton stock route. I saddled up old Star and rode out 10 miles to the Kangaroo River near Cubby and became a man that day. Of course he'd yell at me to get out of the bloody way when the cattle rushed my way suddenly. He carried star pickets and a barbed wire and rolled the wire around the cattle in the corner, a single barbed wire around the cattle in the corner of the stock route at night about pizzle height to keep the cattle on camp unless they rushed in the night. He will also keep a horse where you want him to, just one single barb and a few old star pickets. Brumbies were taken from the bush by 4 men generally on good strong horses. One rode behind the brumbies to keep them coming, one on each wing, and the man who steadied the lead was on a thoroughbred racehorse type, sound of wind and limb. The man in the lead rode 50 yards in the lead and would go a bit left to divert the horse to the right behind him, or go a bit right to divert him to the left behind him. So you had control to run them into your yard for breaking them in. Want to know more? See it on YouTube, Johnson Don 2. That's me, Don Johnson. Thank you. Bye.